Morning, everybody. It's Brian Caprice, and this is our Monday morning market breakdown. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. We're even halfway through August already. It's amazing how fast this summer has flown by. But, with the summer coming to a conclusion, that also means that markets and things like that will get back to somewhat of a regularity, right? Once kids go back to school, it's business as usual. Markets tend to pick up. You guys know the old saying about, go away in May. Well, guess what? They're about to come back. So things are, and again, things have been pretty crazy this summer so far. Here and there, and then it's there's nothing. But I think we're gonna get some. I think some fireworks are gonna start happening pretty soon here once we get closer to September. So and it's almost here. Kids are going back to school. I have my niece and nephew went back last week. I have the kid that I coach for lacrosse that he goes back next week to a private school over in Maryland, and it's here. As parents, I'm definitely excited. So welcome. We're going to see if we can find some opportunity for you guys this week. We're going to go through our top three and then kind of cover the news of where we think the best opportunities lay with news this week. This is actually somewhat of a shy week in news. It's kind of not your usual suspects as far as news goes. So we'll kind of explain them and kind of what the possibilities are for that. And we'll go from there. So first off, just so you guys know who I am, if any of you are new out there, welcome. So I'm the president and CEO of Keep Trading Simple, and what we do is we try to focus on, we're price action traders. We look at supply and demand, and we try to remove a lot of the distractions and things that professionals typically tell you need to use. The more complicated you make trading, the worse your results tend to be. So keeping things simple is really what helps people kind of, get where their goals need to be in trading. All right. Now, I've been in the industry for a long time, been trading since about 2000. I was a financial advisor, so kind of seen both ends of the spectrum, being kind of the retail trader as well as kind of the inside person. For me, I'm not a person that likes to sit in front of a computer for 16, 18 hours a day. I'm a big believer in technology, so you'll see a lot of the areas and things like I talk about, they're very much a set and forget type mentality. If this happens, then this, and if this, then that. And a lot of this can be done with technology. You can set alerts in your platforms, depending on which one you're going to use, and you can be alerted telling you to come back. Okay. I try to stay very busy. I have, 3 kids, 2 boys that I coach lacrosse for, and a little one who's 14 months now. And she's like a minion. She will eat every banana she sees, no matter how many she's already eaten. And she went from the I'm taking 5 steps to where she runs everywhere. So I try to stay busy and try to stay focused on, life as much as possible. Love trading, and that's what we do. So if you see, some of my charts, they don't look like there's 8 million indicators. You're right, there's not. Okay, because I don't typically focus on those type of things. I focus on price action and what I've seen with supply and demand. All right. So with that being said, let's cover the Nadex risk disclaimer. So trading on Nadex involves financial risk and may not be appropriate for all investors. The information presented here is for information and education purposes only and should not be considered an offer or solicitation to buy or sell any financial instrument on Nadex or elsewhere. Now, any trading decision that you make is solely your responsibility, and past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Now, Nadex contracts are based on underlying asset classes, including Forex, stock index futures, and commodity futures. And trading can be volatile, and investors risk losing their investment on any given transaction. However, the design of Nadex contracts ensures investors cannot lose more than the cost to enter the trade or enter the transaction. Nadex is subject to U.S. regulatory oversight by the CFTC. Now, the point about not being able to lose more is very important. If any of you are coming from the futures world or the stock or options world, you guys know there's things called margin calls. Nadex doesn't have those, okay? So that's one of those things that is very beneficial, particularly for me because I absolutely love news trading, and it's something that I use that kind of to take advantage of that, the fact that you can't lose more than entering the trade. Okay, it's a huge, huge perk. All right. So with that being said, let's go into our top 3 for the week. It's crazy. Like I said, it's crazy that it says 8/19 already. All right. So top 3 news releases. Let me give you a quick definition of these. These are news releases that I see as having great potential. The top 3 potentials of the week to give us surprise moves. Now, news is typically one of 2 things. It comes in as forecast or it comes in as a surprise. And typically when we see a large move in the market, it's because of a miss. The forecast was a miss. Now, number 1 up here, you'll see Fed Chair Powell speaks. Now, Fed Chair, Powell can't have a miss because there's not a data figure attached to it. But I think it's going to be very interesting what he has to say. As you know, we cut interest rates before. He said we would not cut anymore except if X, Y, and Z happened. And next thing we know, X, Y, and Z was happening the next day with trade wars and the economy. But then last week we got some CPI data, some inflation data that we finally saw some inflation, which was pretty interesting because inflation is typically related to rates. Low interest rates, more inflation, and that's what they try to keep under control. When you see inflation is where you start to raise rates. So it's going to be kind of interesting right now. Everything was lining up for even more of a cut than we had until that inflation number came in. So I think what he says this week is going to be pretty impactful. There's going to be all eyes on him watching and trying to figure out what is he going to say. Is he signaling that we're definitely not doing another rate cut, or is there a potential rate cut that still could, if the economy requires it? Or could he be starting to flip around and say, based off of everything they see, if he highlights inflation and start talking about inflation, that means that they're thinking we need to watch this and we need to start doing a rate cut to kind of get that under, or a rate hike, which would be pretty interesting. The fact that we just cut it now, and then if we could start, talking about a rate hike. So I think that's going to be a big one to watch, and it's 10 a.m. on Friday Eastern time. Again, I think that, depending on what the market is doing that morning, it's right around that reversal time. If you're an indices trader, definitely could be, some potential for some movement there. All right. Or at least a reversal on Friday, depending on how this week goes. Right. So Wednesday, August 21st, CAD CPI. So our neighbors to the north, obviously their economy is not as large, and their data has actually been pretty good lately. CPI, again, is a gauge of kind of what the consumers are paying. And again, if it starts to get expensive and consumers aren't buying, that typically means the economy is going down, so it could show some weakness. Obviously, if you guys have been watching oil, you know that has been kind of all over the place. Every time that thing goes down, the CAD, the CAD takes another kind of hit, right? Because again, the Canadian economy is based off of oil exportation, basically sending it to us, we refine it and then sell it back to them. So CPI is, again, it is definitely an important number. Again, retail sales typically is a little bit more, but CPI as well. And you guys will see when we kind of break down the week as far as what news looks like, why CPI is number 2. Now, number 3 is kind of a joint one. And I could have put 2 times here, but I'll explain it to you when you see it on the charts. On Thursday, we have French and then we have German PMI right behind each other, right? PMI is also another one of those important numbers. Anytime you see an M, manufacturing, kind of shows you where things are going in the future, where the producers feel that things. And again, it's kind of one of those inside numbers. And when I say inside, it's kind of here are the producers. What are they making? Do they feel, again, they have their finger on the pulse of the economy, right? If they are not producing much, why? Okay. And you have France and you have Germany. Those are the 2 biggest economies in the Euro. If both of those numbers come in good, it's great. If it's bad, it's bad. You guys get what I'm saying? So it is kind of an odd release, but again, it's very important. We saw Euro weakness last week. We start to get numbers here. This could really start driving this thing down. All right, particularly in pairs like the Euro Pound, where we finally saw kind of a pushback to the downside, where it had been really, really cresting and peaking up top. So I feel like those are the top 3. Okay. Now, with that said, let me pull this down. Pull this over here. All right, so this is Forex Factory. Okay, I show a various number of different sites here. So what I've done in Forex Factory is I've gone to somewhat of a weekly view. If you guys have never been here, you go to this green tab and you can pick what economies, what economies you want to use, what kind of strength, the high, the medium, or the low, and the different types of surveys. So in looking at this, again, Monday, always a shy day for news, right? If you guys have been here before, Monday is not normally the biggest one. Typically, the only news we see is late at night because why? In Australia, that's Tuesday. Okay, so there's some monetary policy meeting notes. Again, it is a higher release. The Aussie has been great to trade at night. It's moving anywhere from, you can get anywhere from 40 to 50 pips out on a news release. Monetary policy notes, again, those can kind of give us a foreshadowing of what's going to happen with rate changes. So that could be kind of a, not a bad one, right? Going into Tuesday. Right? Again, everybody else's Tuesday. You'll see it's not a very, very big day. Now, Quarles speaking doesn't typically move the U.S. market. And again, it's at 6 p.m. It's pretty late. You can see the only thing in the morning that really registers as even a slight medium would be manufacturing sales in Canada. So, again, a minor release. It could, lead to some dollar CAD movement if that's what you're going to be trading. But besides that, it's a pretty kind of, I'd say, news-free day, right? Going into Wednesday, again, you can see that we have a little bit of this public sector net borrowing. It's not something that I typically look at. Again, anything that is Strong for the pound would help out here. I mean, it's forecast to be down 3.7, but we'll kind of see what that number comes in at. Like I said, a lot of times the forecasts are off and they miss, and again, this is no difference, right? Looking at Wednesday morning again, this is where the CPI is for the CAD, and you'll see it is by itself. A lot of times you'll see, particularly on Wednesday mornings at 8:30, you will see Canadian and U.S. news all at the same time, right? As those markets come online. Well, it's just the CAD on Wednesday. So again, CPI common, CPI medium, and trend. Like there's 12 different names for it. It's all the same thing. It's CPI. All right. Now, previously it was down, but it's forecast to be up 0.1. And you guys can see on this one, this one isn't that accurate, right? Out of these five, 3 have missed. Now, when I say miss, that doesn't mean that it's negative, but it just means that it is not what the forecast is. And again, this could be, one of those things that starts driving the dollar CAD currency pair to the downside as we see, CAD strength kind of return. All right. Now, 2 p.m., we do have FOMC meeting notes. FOMC meeting notes are one of those things. I don't expect any huge fireworks from this one because there's no rate change or anything like that associated with it. But if you do have positions on, you may want to make sure you protect yourself. Again, whether taking your positions off a bit early or, again, really watching it, being kind of cognizant of what's going on. Okay, going into Thursday, this is where you can see we had a lot of that European data that I talked about. And this is kind of that joint release, right? 315, 330, again, you have this French PMI services, and then you have German. Again, two largest governments / economies inside of the European Union. If you look at both the numbers, last time it was a bit higher, right? It was revised. Okay, it's supposed to be lower than that. And same thing, Germany also supposed to be lower. Now, the market does have these things factored in already based off the forecast, but you can see again, are they ever correct? Not really, right? They tend to miss a bunch. And last time the forecast was much higher, right? So again, that could be leading us in the same situation. Again, France, you can see again here, big miss on this one. 50 is a big number, right? Going to look at Germany, same thing. Okay, they don't hit too often, right? So the forecast for this one is kind of just a dart in a wall, right? And again, you guys see a lot of red over here. Okay, they tend to miss. So again, the market has this number factored in. They come in with a miss. This is bad for the European Union. That could help shoot the euro pound or the euro dollar to the downside. So I do think we have some potential with that one. Again, it is early. If you are a West Coaster, this is at midnight. That may be a little bit easier for you to trade it. East Coasters may be a little bit harder, but again, you can always set your trades up before you go to bed. All right, that is definitely possible. Now, one I do like as well, and again, this is kind of the hidden one of the week. You guys see this retail sales number at 6:45 p.m. So this is the New Zealand dollar, and here's where this is a little secret. The New Zealand dollar numbers typically also carry over into Australian dollar pairs, okay, because their two economies are so linked, same region. If you see kind of a rate change over here in the New Zealand dollar, you will see the Aussie dollar move as well. So this may be kind of a little hidden gem if you guys come back and you're around for this one. I know you can't trade it over at Nadex, but again, you can trade Aussie-based pairs. So this is kind of again, this retail sales number could be a nice little pop. If this is good or bad for any of the Aussie two that we have. Now going into Friday. Friday again is kind of slow, right? At 8:30 we have CAD retail core sales numbers, right? Core retail sales is a good news release, okay? Now, the question is it going to be enough to stand on its own, okay? Dollar CAD may or may not move. If you're a currency trader, obviously you could trade this with dollar CAD yen. But I think this is where, people are going to be watching Powell speak and see what he has to say, okay? Now, we do have the Jackson Hole Symposium. It is day 2, okay? Day 1 is over here. Anytime you have these type of symposiums, one thing we are opening ourselves up to is news risk, okay? The current administration loves to use Twitter, okay? How many times can you guys count in the lot? Basically, let's just talk about the summer. How many times this summer has a tweet sent the market going absolutely crazy? See if you can count that on your fingers and maybe fingers and toes, right? Any type of symposium like this, you may get some comments. And again, those comments are not something that you can predict. You don't know when they're going to hit the market, but again, they have the ability to kind of move some things around. So just be cognizant of those things. Again, that's going to be out there. Like I said, not a huge week for news. Next week is starting to get a little bit better. And then once we get back into September, it's business as usual, normal releases, much normal movement. And I am looking forward to this fall. I think this fall with, the elections and things like that starting to heat up. And I think you're going to start seeing a lot more large market swings, but a little bit, not whippy, but a little bit more trendy. So I'm looking forward to that, okay? So let's take this out of here. Now, with that being said, let's go down and we will go look at actual charts. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through US. I'm going to basically run through Nadex-based pairs. There's obviously more out there in currencies, but this is what we're going to focus on right now. With the US markets not open yet, that's why we're going to focus on currencies. Okay. So this is the dollar, the Aussie yen. For those of you not familiar, what I use here is multiple time frame analysis. Strategies that I trade typically look for areas of trending. I'm looking for pullback, and then I have an entry time frame. And that's what the three ones are that you're seeing here. The upper left is the daily. Then you have the 4 hour in the bottom left, and then the right-hand side is my 30-minute, kind of my dialing it down. So if you're unfamiliar with the charts, this is what they look like. So as you can see, on the daily in this pair, we had a really, really big pullback, right? And now we're seeing price kind of slowly chip its way up, okay? Those of you familiar with my terminology, this is called a racetrack. We typically look for retracements of a racetrack, and that's kind of what we had, and price has gone up and actually filled back to the top again. So it's not in any tradable state right now. It would be considered sideways movement for me because this red is engulfed completely, okay? When things are engulfed, what it's showing is we're having kind of a failure of trend. If it does go above this red line, then we have broken out of the prior, kind of pullback. And of course, then we're looking for longs and into this formation. So looking across, bit of a gap in there, over here. Nothing really that I see that just screams at me. Looking at the 30-minute as far as, things to look at today, don't really love anything in this one, right? A lot of chopping back and forth, a lot of consolidation. We kind of had price spike all the way up, again, flatlined, and it's kind of pushing higher, right? Here's one high, here's a little bit higher, a little bit higher, a little bit higher. So technically we are in an uptrend, but again, it just seems like it's chopping back and forth. It's kind of, just boom, 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 boom. So no real, crazy setups on this one for me right now. Looking at Aussie dollar, very similar pattern. Okay, you guys can see this one even more on the 30-minute. Look at this. Chop, 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 chop. I mean, it literally looks like a saw blade back and forth. So if you do like channels, there is this channel, right? I can put this, where we at here? Now, we have been kind of stuck inside of this channel, bouncing back and forth. And again, I'm taking the extreme ranges. You guys could really move it into here. And again, it has consolidated a bit back and forth. But again, it is bouncing back and forth between the two. Looking at the 4 hour, you guys can see, I mean, it kind of had this nice movement down. I mean, again, racetrack up, kind of stabilized, went back down again, grabbed orders from this pullback right here on the 7th, and then it stopped. Okay, it stopped and started this channel. So as far as looking for something that's trending, this pair I would say is not there, right? If I stretch the candles, it's still just going back and forth, all right? We formed some type of buying area right below here at 67.35 and, 68.09 up top, again, 70 pips, right? But again, it's been back and forth. And again, that's been more over here. It's really gotten small over here on the 4 hour, right? Those maybe you guys can see this a little bit. I'll do the, where is it, the ruler, right? You guys are seeing that we are kind of stuck in a 23 pip area. Okay, and again, a lot of this is Friday. A lot of this is, Sunday night. Don't really have a lot of movement. But again, money is not offering a lot of opportunity for us as far as news releases are really that much of a catalyst. The market has really kind of reacted to everything at this point. So looking a little bit shy. Now, an area I'm looking at too that I do like is I like this area down here. I will put a horizontal line down there for you guys. I do like this area here. Okay, and the reason I like it is because the way that this came down and it formed, it has higher wicks in here. Typically, the 4 hour for me is kind of what is the law. It's what I would call the judge, right? This is a very nice reaction. It bounced off an area down here that was kind of a little bit of a hidden area. The way that the candles formed on here, a big fan of it. So I'm definitely looking for buying opportunities when we can get below this 67.46. To the top side, I don't have as much. Probably all the way up here at the 68.05 is probably the best opportunity for any type of short scenario. Okay, so there would be bottom side, and top side for me probably up in that area. I don't like this, the way that the candle is formed. So that's kind of the top and bottom of the channel for me as far as I'm looking at it. Okay, now going across, and let's go down to Euro Pound. This is the one that I mentioned could be big this week, right? Why is that? Because again, the French and German news. Okay, this is a pair. Oh, these are old lines. We've been following this pair and looking on the daily. I don't have it marked on this one, but we were sitting, and there's actually an area right there that we were turning from. Okay, we've watched price, and again, when I say we were watching it, it was from all the way, actually more than the history I have on this chart right now. Okay, we watch price come all the way back down again, run into this little pullback, and then do a little bit of a bounce. But every market movement is made up of two things, an impulse and a correction, right? Well, here's your impulse. correction, impulse, correction, impulse, correction, impulse, correction, and then your instinctive move here back down was very small, showing that, hey, listen, we just changed trend. And what it did, and again, it made sense. It bounced off of this gap area right here. Everything made sense why I flipped, okay? So now what it's doing is it's coming back up again. It's forming kind of an uptrend. It's changed, right? Areas I'm looking for on this one on the 4-hour would be located right here, right? I like this movement, probably there, right? I really like this large extended range candle. And again, you can see that over here as well. This would be, what are we looking at? 91.79, 91.79. Again, pretty easy to see where it is. I just wanted to verify it. Right in there, right? Again, we're starting to approach it. You've seen some big movement, obviously coming in early today, right? This morning, 3 a.m., boom, boom, boom. European traders came in line, and it's starting to, again, not many wicks underneath, a lot of wicks up top. So it broke through this area. It took multiple attempts. Again, it's coming back up to areas over here as well as up in this area here at 91.90 that I think could be definitely an area that we turn and push, okay? But again, as you see it here, the impulse corrections, here's your impulse. We'll see if this is the corrective move. If we start to see any red on these candles, that tells me that it looks like we're going to be pushing back down to this 89.77. So this is a couple day this is a trade I'm looking at for the week. Looking for it giving me a confirmation that it's turning and flipping, particularly with the French and the German data forecast to be lower. I don't really think that those are going to be surprised, but again, obviously, cover yourself on risk and make, look to see this to the downside. Okay, I got a question real quick out there, so I'm going to go over this real quick. So impulse and correction. So basically an impulse is this driving movement, right? You guys can see the impulse is getting stronger, right? Strong impulse down, bit of a correction, right? Strong impulse a little bit. Now, a correction is, Andrew, is a pullback. That's all it is. It's just another way of saying a pullback, right? The market drives forward, pulls back to get some more orders on sale, and then drives forward again. Now, again, this is the opposite. This is down. We could use this daily up here, right? Impulse move would be this green, and then we pull back. Impulse, pull back. Okay, now this impulse was little as it based and then shot forward again. But that's how the market works. Drives forward, pulls back to get some more orders as people collect profit. Then it drives forward again, and it will keep doing this inside of a trend until the trend stops and ends like we had down here. Okay, and there's certain tools that you can use to determine when the trend is over. But it's that constant move, that impulse correction, impulse correction, impulse correction, impulse correction. That's what that's how you kind of keep track of what's going on in the market. Okay, and you guys have heard that saying, right? The trend is your friend until the bend at the end. Well, how do you know it's still trending? Where do you get in? Do you get in after a big push? No, you get in on the pullbacks. Okay, that's why I use multiple time frame for analysis. So hopefully that answers your question over there, Andrew. All right, dropping down to euro yen. So euro yen kind of has a similar picture, right? We have been talking about this kind of same sideways movement, right? The same kind of channel. We left this up because, again, we just saw the same pattern in the Aussie yen. This kind of back and forth was within a specific range. Well, it broke, right? And it went lower and is now kind of just stopped, right? Looking at the 4-hour, again, obviously Friday. But if you look what it did at the end of last week, we're really kind of wedged between 119, about 119.30 and 117.80. So about 100 pip area here. And again, you can see most of that is just this peak up and down, right? Besides that, it kept very, very small. And again, racetrack trade, okay? You'll hear me use that terminology a lot. There's actually a webinar that'll be coming around in September called Parabolic Retracements with Nadex. Again, very, very big spike, and then it's how do you play this retrace to bring it back down again. Where we are right now, okay, this is one of those pairs. Although there's been a lot of movement up and a lot of pullback down again, this candle right here, what is that, on August 15th? This candle kind of messed a lot of the analysis up. It was a very fast spike up on news, and it grabbed where it was supposed to, right? It grabbed an order. It was an entry, right? You could have played this back to the downside, okay? But for analysis right now, it's making it a little bit difficult because, again, this wick shows us that there was no buyers. I mean, it went up and then was immediately pushed back down again. So it's hard because, again, it is a single wick. Again, one of the things about price action is reading candle formation and understanding the bodies and the wicks and the correlations between it. When I say reading, candles and bodies, I'm not talking about haramis and, falling stars and shooting stars and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about the actual bodies, the opens, the close, and then where the movement was during the day, right? The candle, the wicks. So let me bring this all the way across over here. So this is where we currently are. We've watched price again from Friday, kind of push back up again. And if you look, we are kind of over and kind of flirting with this area here, right? Why the analysis is hard is because of the spike on news. Okay, it went all the way up to here, so technically there should be some sellers in here. And one of the tools I use is this oscillator tool that's reading the candles wicks for me. And again, it's looking back and saying, there's a lot of unfilled orders there. This wick is really kind of not challenged at all. Okay. I think for this one, we're going to have to see how U.S. traders come online. And again, we'll see. Right now, the European Union can do whatever they want. They can force the dollar up, down, left, right, sideways. Once U.S. traders get online, we'll see if this one starts bouncing around a little bit more. Okay. Are getting conflicting signals, though. We are in a downtrend setup, meaning we're looking for a pullback. Unfortunately, the zones on the 4-hour and the 30-minute just aren't that great. Okay. Now look at the euro dollar. So the euro dollar did something very, very similar. We had a bit of push up, kind of sideways movement, and then it kind of came back down again and rested at this low area. Okay. So this yellow line was kind of a line in the sand for us. We were looking for a break and a retest. Here was that break and retest here as well. This is a momentum breakout strategy that I use a lot of times. Very, very popular. Drop, retest, and kind of push. And here's the same thing. Impulse. There was your corrective move. Impulse, correction, impulse, correction, impulse, correction. And then that's where it broke. Okay. And again, it went off an area that was very, pretty, one of those areas that it just kind of screams like, yeah, it's probably going to have some problems in this area because of all the wicks, this little sawtooth, and that's exactly what happened. So going into this week right now, it's technically considered an uptrend, but again, a lot of that is kind of messed up for the gap. If anything, at this point, I would say, obviously, the last 5 days have been, strong for the dollar, and euro is pushing down again. We are getting a bit of a retracement, a bit of a pullback right now. Looking at the 4-hour, we are in an area of sellers here. We do have another area of sellers right above it. So even if we do get a bit of a retracement back, there are areas where I do believe people are going to be stepping in and pushing this back to the downside. All right. You're welcome, David. All right. So as far as this pair goes, U.S. traders need to come online. That's something we're always watching out for. Areas where I'd want to watch out for this one, obviously, is the area we're at right now. Obviously, this is telling me that there are sellers here because of the descending candles. Obviously, that's another area right there. If I change this to, here, we'll change this to like a red. You guys can see it a little bit better. And we'll do dots. There we go. So you guys can see it. Obviously, this area right here at 111.40, it's an area that matters to me. The way that this pulled back and then kind of launched, exploded, there's some sellers in there. All right. And again, that's what you're seeing up in here on the 30-minute. Again, multiple time frame analysis. You'll see it here, and it populates on this side. Okay. Let's look at the pound yen. So pound yen is one of those pairs I've had like a love-hate relationship with lately. We are in an area kind of at buyers at the bottom. It just, some days we get some absolutely amazing movement, right? Great drop down. It basically opened and closed at the same pot. Great, great movement up, nice little pullback. And then again, we're starting to drive a bit higher. So what we did is we kind of hit an area of seller or buyers at the bottom. We kind of pushed back up again. We retraced, it kind of pushed back up again. So it's been grinding in a proper pattern. Obviously, Friday, Sunday, it's kind of flat line right now again. But what it did is it pulled back to an area of where we saw previous sellers. Okay. And again, not the most explosive sellers to the downside. And typically, I like things like this. All right. Like this is a great area for me to look at this over here. Looking at this 132.20. I like this because again, price came down, it bounced off of this zone, which was previously here, kind of bounced off of it, and then bam, it just collapsed, right? It just boom, just rocket ship to the downside. Those are the best type of setups, and those are what I'm looking for, and you got to be patient for them. Unfortunately, in a pair that's been whipping like this, and this is what the movement is, it's not, it's not a beautiful setup. Okay. Here's what we're dealing with right now. Okay, this is what the current 30-minute trades are. Again, we had the bit of a, the overnight on Sunday. Obviously, again, we're just kind of just back and forth. This is very, very common. It's not really giving us much direction. You guys can see it on the 4-hour, just going sideways. For smaller time frame trades, an area that I'd be looking at is right over here. Okay, this is a nice little kind of upward movement, a little bit of a base, and then a nice explosion out. And again, that that happened this morning. No, that was actually last week. So again, nice. I like that area. Okay, for anything kind of pulling back down again, I think this is going to be the start of where our positions are for the week. When things go down, we'll see what we get down here. And again, U.S. traders coming online. And I know the U.S. is not in this one, but the yen is. And the yen is really what's been dominating most moves last week. You see the Aussie yen, the dollar yen, the pound yen, even the CAD yen and Swiss yen, all just tanked because of the yen. The strength that came to the yen based off of U.S. news data last week. Okay. So we'll see what we got with that one. Looking at the pound dollar. Okay, pound dollar. I talked last week about we're finally seeing some strength, and you can see it over here in these candles, right? You guys see this over here? Yeah, it was basing, and then boom, at the end of the week, it started to pull up, went into this area of basing, and again, you see these wicks. Again, telltale sign that we're probably going to get a pullback, and we did. We started the pullback on Friday. You guys can see right now on the most recent, definitely kind of pushing back down again, and it's making a drive, most likely back down to this level here. 120.84 is kind of an area of stabilization. You can see it on the 4-hour chart over here. It's this little kind of pullback, right? We had this impulse, correction, and then it kind of went sideways and then exploded to the top side. So that's kind of, for me, is what I'm looking for before I look for any entry on this one. And again, Mondays have been slow this summer. We'll see if we can get this back in here. Again, like it to kind of chop through all this stuff, and that would give me at least a, somewhat of a trade setup, most likely to the upside if U.S. traders come in weak this morning. I think they may be trying to push us back down and get some export kind of power for Monday. All right. But again, don't necessarily love this pair. This is a lot of basing, and like I said, for me, a big telltale area is going to be this one way up here, but it's about 300 pips up, so not going to be there anywhere soon. We'll see if we have a couple good days in a row rallying up again. Thursday, we could be putting ourselves over in here, and again, if the euro tanks, you will typically see a little bit of pound strength come in because of the euro pound currency pair. Okay, so that could be a setup later in the week. Again, this is summer trading, unfortunately. Okay, summer trading. If Boris Johnson gets a Twitter account, then we are good. Well, he has one, but his tweets have just not been to the same level as ours. So if he takes it up a notch, we'll get some good plays on that one. Dropping over dollar CAD. As I mentioned, dollar CAD, I think Wednesday is the day for the dollar CAD. You guys can see large racetrack move to the top. We have been retracing. It went all the way up and hit an area of sellers, and again, it is now rallying and pushing. When I say rallying, I mean it's starting to drive to the downside. Obviously, the Canadian market and the U.S. market are not on right now. Areas for me that I'm looking for price to pull back down to is this 132-ish area. 132 is right here, right above this kind of red zone. I'm going to see how the market open goes today. Again, you guys can see a bit of a gap up, and it kind of came across. It is pulling back up into that area. I'm probably more bearish this position right now, waiting for price to come back down into here, but I like the way that this kind of shot off of this area. It popped, came back and retested and created a higher low, and then launched itself off of it. So definitely big into this area. I don't know. It's about 60 pips down from where we are. Problem is the ATR on this one is only about 72 pips. So can it make it down there in a day? Yes. It's not quite one full ATR, but it's also a shy day for news for both the U.S. and Canada. So it's going to take a lot for it to be pushed that far down. So that's really kind of an area that I'm really looking for. Over here as well, if you guys look, if this kind of rallies to the top side, if it breaks through kind of all this junk once the U.S. market opens, the 132.70 area, I do kind of like that area as well because, again, it bounced off of this area, came up, and then kind of exploded to the downside. So obviously there were some sellers really wanting this not to go any higher at 132.75. That could be a short-term play that we're looking for later today. Looking at dollar Swiss. Dollar Swiss is also one of those pairs that I have a love-hate relationship with. There are days that I absolutely love trading it. Then there are other days where it's kind of like, I don't know about that one. This one actually had some great setups last week. Again, a lot of it was kind of news-based. The strange thing about this pair is this one is more geopolitically based with news. Somebody shoots a drone down, somebody shoots a missile, somebody, does something that, the UN is not happy about. Protests are another one. That will send this thing kind of bouncing back and forth. All right. Again, you can see on the 30-minute been choppy, drove its way down, popped all the way back up, spiked to here, came shooting right back down again, and again, back and forth. A lot of space on this one. This one is a funky pair right now. I'm probably going to see what happens with today. I'm going to see what the dollar is able to do, what the dollar is able to kind of track in there. Again, kind of mixed review, mixed signals right now. We're saying it's sideways, up confirmed. This one we have a break to the downside. This one's sideways, so it's a little bit all over the place right now. I don't really necessarily like the way any of this was formed down here, and again, that's a problem for me. I would like it to rally back up into the 99.00 range. I think that's where I'd be looking at shorts immediately in this pair. But again, we got some room to run. We got about 100 pips, so it's got about a day and a half worth of movement before we're at that area. Okay. Again, a lot of green, only very minor pullbacks as well. I am looking on the short term for it to run into something. Unfortunately, we're kind of in that area right now. We're looking at this, right? We're kind of in that area right now, but again, I'm not seeing anything, a little bit of a pullback, but I want to see a color change, meaning I see a red, a green, and a red as a confirmation to the downside. That's what I'm looking for over here. Going into dollar yen. So dollar yen again will be dominated by the U.S. stock market this week. Kind of a similar situation, right? Large racetrack. This one did not fully kind of go back again. And again, no strategy works 100% of the time. We missed entry on this one by very, very small amounts. And again, pulled about 70% of the way back before it kind of just started the baseline and stopped. Okay, you guys can see on the lower time frame, again, this one, after it did its movement, it just kind of slowed down. It got, again, Friday really kind of took over and we didn't get the movement. I actually thought we would have more movement on Friday before the market was, closing, but it really just kind of leveled out, right? Where we are now, we are approaching kind of the upper range here. You guys can see on the daily, right? We've pulled back almost to where this red candle started. You can see the anchor is marked off with the red in the blue line. We're kind of right there at the top. And same thing on the 4-hour, you can see price has been here before and gotten pushed back down again. So in this one, I'm looking for just a little bit higher, or I'm looking for a confirmation over here. May even drop down to the 15-minute today to take some type of intraday trade this morning. But we'll see if the markets are going to be flat today or we're going to get some movement. That's really the big key with this pair. The yen last week was absolutely dominant, and that's where we saw this movement happen, right? And again, then the pullback to the downside. So, and again, you saw that in every yen-based pair, all right? Again, U.S. stock market is being a proxy for that one. So again, we'll look at that one. Look for reversals as well on this one at 10 and 10:30 in the morning. And with that being said, guys, that is the last Nadex pair that we can cover this morning. So, yeah, like I said, news is kind of shy this week. So again, we got to be careful with that. Again, news is a great catalyst. Prices will move no matter what anyway, but they get there a lot faster when we do have the news to do it. So I'm glad I was able to go over that impulse and correction. If you guys have any other questions, this is how you get in touch with me. Go to the website, check us out on Twitch at night. You guys can, find us on Facebook, email me. If you use Discord, there's our free chat room. We're in there 24/7 chatting. With that being said, guys, I will catch you same time next week. We only have 2 weeks left and we are in September. So you guys have a good trading week and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.